Hello and welcome to the Divorce to Bliss podcast. Here you will learn all things related to healing from divorce, mind, body, and spirit, so you can create a beautiful new life filled with happiness. I'm Rachel Ruby, author of Divorce to Bliss, divorce coach, speaker, and attorney, and I'm so glad you found me here. Hello and welcome to the Sex After Divorce series of the Divorce to Bliss podcast. I'm Rachel Ruby, and in this series I speak with experts in sex and relationship, and they are the top people in their field when it comes to understanding sexuality, sensuality, body perception, arousal, intimacy, and the fear of sex after divorce and how it relates to all of those. We will dive into issues that will help both women and men understand their bodies better so that they can get excited about future intimate relationships and have happy sex lives after healing from divorce. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about how to get ready for sex after divorce. And my guest is Marla Mervis-Hartmann. Marla is the best-selling author of Befriend Yourself, Finding Freedom with Food and Peace with Your Body. She is a coach, a Reiki Master, a TEDx speaker, and she is dedicated to guiding people towards deep love and peace with their bodies, food, and their lives. With a spiritual approach that goes beyond diet culture, Marla helps individuals find true healing and reconnect with their authentic selves. She thrives in supporting others in their journey to self-compassion and empowerment. I'm so excited to have Marla here with us today. We're going to get into some juicy topics. So welcome to the podcast, Marla.
Thank you so much, Rachel. We're going to have a good time on this one.
Let's do it. So before we get started, why don't you give me a little bit of an introduction as to how you got involved in all of this and coaching people?
Yeah. So as most people who are doing this work, I've had a very tumultuous relationship with my body and food. Now, my story isn't very unique. I think there are a lot of women out there who have struggled with their body and with food, whether it's dieting, restricting, binging, purging, over-exercising. I've done pretty much all of it. And so I was on a very long journey of being in the dysfunction, and then a long journey of being in recovery and being in the place of learning about myself and learning about why I went to food. So it was a lot of coping, using food and using dieting as a way to cope with my emotions. And so as I dove into the recovery, I got to see that my journey with food and my body was a deeper issue. It wasn't about fixing the food and getting my body to a certain weight. It really was about loving myself, listening to myself, and honoring myself. And so that's one of the reasons I wrote the book, is one of the reasons I'm doing this work, because I see so many people, so many women in this place of fighting their food and fighting their body. And so since we're going to talk about sex, I'll point out one of the big pieces of my recovery is that I noticed that I did not honor and acknowledge my sexual, sensual being. I was brought up in a very Christian household where the body is, you're not supposed to have sex. And there was a lot of, I felt for myself, a lot of shame. And so when I began to heal this, when I began to heal and lean into, oh my gosh, there's so much pleasure available. Oh my gosh, my body, food is actually pleasurable. It's, if I slow down and I allow myself to be in it, with it and in it, and it's like, it began to transform how I related to my body. So it wasn't what my body looked like, it was what my body felt like. And that pleasure, sexual pleasure, sensual pleasure began to incorporate into everything. How I saw life, how I moved through life, how I ate my food, how I enjoyed connections with other people. And so I think that the piece of sexuality and sensuality and healing that really did help me to heal my relationship with my body and the food, along with a lot of other things. Yeah. So here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are.
It's thank you so much for sharing your story. And I agree with you 100%. After coming out of my divorce, I had to really work hard on, quashing some things that I had been told about myself, which really affected the way I saw my body and also my beliefs in whether or not I could be an intimate person. And so I too learned the joy of just loving my body. And not so much for me, food wasn't, I didn't ever have issues with food, but I do appreciate, food and just the sensuality of it when you're with someone you love and sharing a meal and all of that. And so anyway, it's really wonderful that you help people to see this within themselves, because a lot of times, we don't see it, or we don't want to see it. Right. So as you know, and as you can imagine, I mean, I don't think you've been divorced. Is that correct? But yeah, but as I'm sure you work with people, and as you can imagine, sex after divorce can be very scary. And I speak mostly with women, but I speak with men too. But I find that for mostly women, it seems to be scarier because, there's the idea of, especially when they come out of long marriages, being with someone and having someone see you naked, and maybe you haven't had sex in years, So given this scariness, how can somebody learn to feel good within their body, their mind, and their spirit? Because we need all three, obviously, in order to get ready for a joyful and happy sex life after divorce. So the first thing you mentioned was just listening to the body, the mind, and the spirit. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how we do that to get ready for sex?
Yeah. Well, as we start this conversation, I think, and we can talk about how to listen to the body, but we really need to be aware of wow, this is scary territory, right? There is, if we've only been seen by one partner for a really long time, and now we're putting ourselves out there, and the body has changed, right? So maybe it's been years and the body is now different, and now you're being seen. That is really a moment of fear. And now, and it can be also very exciting too, right? Oh my gosh, finally, bring me the man, right? Bring me the woman. I am ready, right? I'm ready to be a sexual human being again, especially as you said, if we haven't had sex for a while, which often happens towards the end of divorce, towards the end of a relationship. And so we're really looking at honoring the body, right? Honoring and listening to the body, and listening to those moments of oh my gosh, I'm afraid of this. This feels uncomfortable, right? And it's the listening to the body and listening to what shows up here in this moment. So it's not overriding. It's not overriding and just making it happen. And, in this place, we can meet ourselves, we can meet that fear, and we can listen to the body in a deeper way, because this is the thing. Sex is it's a physical act, right? And so everything that we're talking about today, we want to really, really allow for some of these concepts we're talking about to not just meet our mind, but to meet our body, because this is an embodied experience. And so when we're listening to the body, we want to learn how to respect ourselves. Right? We want to learn how to respect where we are and what we're able to bring to the table. Now, if you're in relationship with someone after divorce, this is where communication is really important, right? Communicating with that person and saying, this feels uncomfortable. So I have a friend of mine who was saying, she's in divorce and she was with a partner and years ago, she was married, then she met up with that partner again. And she's she had the conversation, listen, my body is not the same from when we had sex all those years ago. So, and how it was so different, and really listening and honoring that, right? Honoring that that's where she was, and she wanted to speak that into the space. Yeah. And so this is a big point to not just override this moment, because this transition from relationship to another relationship is pretty profound. And so we want the whole being to be on board, right? Yeah. We want the whole being, and that's really important.
Yeah. So what advice can you give to a woman who, or a man, I just guess we're focusing mostly on women, but what can you tell her if she has gone, done the healing process and she's ready to go out there and meet someone, and how can she respect herself? What can she do to respect herself when she's just going out there before she's actually going to have sex with someone, and she's going out there and maybe dating? What can she do for herself that will help her down the road when she is ready to have sex?
Well, for a lot of women and a lot of men, we need to start to get the fire going. So if you have not been touched and you haven't been sexual, because I've had a lot of women like, I don't even know if it works. Right. So
I was that way.
Yeah. And so we don't want to wait. We want to literally start bringing in pleasure. We want to bring in self-pleasure. Right. We want to start doing things that bring in this idea of pleasure. So, and that can look like, taking a bath and being in the shower. We all bathe, we all shower, and having a loving touch experience with self. Right. Mm-hmm. I find that breast massage, right, can be so powerful because, it's connection to the heart. Mm-hmm. Right. And it is something that begins to open up the heart and open up these centers, right? And open up our breasts have so many nerve endings, right? And when we know how we want to be touched. Right. We know what can turn us on. No, maybe you don't right now. Maybe you're in a different body. Maybe you have let this go. So this is really exciting because now you're meeting yourself for the first time in a new way, and you get to be in the exploration. So yes, there can be fear that shows up there, right? But fear and excitement sometimes live very close to each other. So we can turn that fear into excitement, and that excitement can lead to a lot of pleasure. So self-pleasuring, breasts, taking time with yourself in bed, taking your time to self-pleasure yourself, to enjoy, start thinking about yourself as a sensual woman, as a sensual man, as a sensual being, right? So slowing down and allowing moments that you would normally just pass over to be a sensual experience. Drinking my water.
Yes.
Right? And it seems kind of silly, right? But we're kind of doing that as because we want to over exaggerate it, because if these parts of us have been
dormant.
Dormant. I was going to say dead, so dormant's a better word. Dormant. We need to wake them up. And so sometimes we need to exaggerate it. And that can even be fun, right? So, and also
that's great.
It's visualization, visualizing. What would it be like, right? What would it be like? There can be a visualization. What would I like? Allowing for the mind, right? To allow,
to see it. Yeah.
Visualizing is also it really does turn on the body, right? Oh yeah. And so that's important, right? To think about that. In those moments when we're visualizing, we may have a moment of fear show up. And then that's the moment, as we said, to listen to that, acknowledge that, take some time with that. It's okay.
Yeah.
We're going to be all right.
What about, so as you were talking about all this self-pleasuring and touch and all of that, I just kind of jumped to when I was back starting to date years ago, and how excited I got, like dressing up and doing my hair and putting on makeup, because I went through my healing process for 2 years, and I didn't go out. I told myself I wasn't going to date, and I tell most of my clients, first you need to heal, until I felt that I was ready, right? And I knew when I was ready, I knew. And that's when I started to really get excited, and I wanted to be feminine, and I wanted to, experiment with different hairstyles and the makeup and the getting it. And for me, that was such a turn on to starting to date and just feeling good within my body. So
that is such a great point. I love that idea. Yeah. And even doing that and walking through the grocery store.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Not waiting to be going somewhere, but putting lipstick on and then going out in public. Right. Yeah. That can be a really big turn on.
It was. And I think for me, and I did that. And I remember one time I went to a grocery store and I was coming from meeting a girlfriend. We were going out to listen to some music and I stopped at this grocery store. And this one man just kept like, he almost fell over with his grocery bag. And then he said something really nice to me. It was really cute. But it wasn't like, oh, you're hot or anything. It was just like, he said, you have no idea what effect you have on me right now. And it made me feel so good because I was just starting the dating process and I wasn't sure, like, are men going to look at me? I mean, I was in a 30-year relationship, so I didn't know, so for me, that was like the best compliment ever. And watching him almost trip, it was really cute. And it made me feel really good. Like, I'm glad that I put on this dress and some makeup and yeah.
Yeah, it made you feel seen. Yeah. And that can be a part of it, right? It can be the fear of like, it might even desirable anymore. I'm in a completely, for a lot of people, in a completely different stage in their life where they were dating in one stage and now they are married and now they're in another place. And they have a completely different set of hormones, like a balance of hormones, right? And I think that leads to, one of the points we talked about, which is like honoring our cycles, right? And honoring and noticing that, where we were at the age where we got married, and then the age that we're dating later can be completely different. Yes. And that is important to acknowledge and to not to go back in time and say, how did I do that then? I mean, sometimes you may want to look at that, but like what person am I in? What woman am I right now? What man am I right now? And allowing for that empowerment to show up. And that can be so amazing because, wow, you've gone through a huge experience, and there's a huge awakening when you go through divorce, and I mean, so much healing and then so much empowerment. And so that can be that could just be such a turn on and so empowering, to acknowledge self in that, to really acknowledge.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. And when you brought that up when we first connected and you were talking about honoring the cycles, I love that, just that title, like honoring the cycles, because a lot of women, when they come to me, they're so down, they're so in just the victim state, most of them, and just feeling, not even thinking about feeling beautiful and wanting to, be with, they're just so down. And you have to separate that, because I got married when I was 25 years old. I just had graduated law school, passed the bar exam. I was starting my career. I was a totally different person than I was when I got divorced, right? And I had 2 children and they were adults already. And it was just night and day. So if I had focused on the person I was at 25, that wouldn't have found me the right partner. Because I'm not that I am that person, but I don't have the same values. My body has changed. I have a lot more wisdom. And so I think the honoring of the cycles is so important, no matter where you are. I mean, you can be in your 20s and going through divorce, but still you learn from that, right? So you're going to be a little bit different and have maybe different goals or different qualities you would like to see in a partner, et cetera. So I think that's great.
Yeah. And what, it's important to say, like, what are our boundaries around sex? Like in the body that we are, what are the boundaries that we hold from this space? And I think I think that's important to acknowledge. No, I think it's very clear usually it's like, oh no, I'm not doing that. No. And I want that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. There can be like some clarity that it's just, but even just us talking about it right now is just to think about that. Like, what do I want? What would feel good to me in this body that I'm in? What do I need? Right? Because sometimes we need more time, right? Like we need more time to get the juices flowing at it and in a different age. Right? Yeah. That's just physicality. That's just the reality. And that's okay. There's nothing. It's just a different body.
Yeah. And I think to your point, I think it's so important to write these things down as you have these epiphanies, right? Like I always tell when my clients are getting ready for dating, and I did the same thing, make a list of all the qualities you would love to see in a perfect world in a man or in a future partner. And, try not to put things on there like I want him to be, 6'2", but just the qualities that matter. Just make a list, and it doesn't matter if there's 100 things on it, and you can change it in time as you continue to go through healing. You can whittle it down, and knowing that you're not expecting to meet the person that has all these qualities, right. But if you know what's important to you, and then, in time you can start to kind of move things around and maybe make the top 5 things or whatever, however you want to do it. There's no rules. And then when you do start to date and you are meeting people and talking people, when you see they have some of those qualities, it's going to be like, oh, that's a quality that I really like, and admire. And I think that really helps. So when you have these realizations as to who you are now, what you want, what you need, write them down in your journal, and keep going back to that and changing it whenever you feel the need to. It's such a great thing to do, I think. And it helped me.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful because it takes you out of what you don't like. Like, I don't want that.
Yes.
Right? It takes you out of the negative and puts you in the positive. And then to take this even further, like, what do you want in your sex life?
Yeah.
What relationship you have, and then what is ideal for your sex life? Like, what would you like to have? What would you like to experience? Now, sometimes the things that we like and things that we want can be a little bit skewed because we still have the old voices from our past relationship. So we may still have, so when it comes to our bodies, we may still have the voice of the past partner saying, your body isn't this, I don't like when you do that, and it's so important to slow that down and realize it, just because, and some of it can be really harmful and painful and traumatic, to be told certain things about yourself, about your body, about how you are sexually. And so it's important to notice that those things may come up.
Right.
And you may be already, we're talking about this, you may be like, oh, I know exactly what that is. But you may not until you're actually having sex with someone. And you may have a fear around something, right? Like maybe your partner didn't like your butt or something, and you have a clenching, and it's, holding. And it's like, that's the moment to be like, no, this is a whole different experience. Yeah. And that also goes back to like, what do I want? I want someone who enjoys my body and doesn't say this, and that, right? So taking the time, and sometimes, like I said, it's in the moment, but also remembering like, oh, that was a pain point that was said to me. And I want to clear that voice. I want to choose that I'm not going to believe that anymore. That's easier said than done. I'm not saying that that's an easy thing, right? For sometimes it is, right? It's like, not, like those times you teach those beliefs, and like, I don't even believe that. And it's like,
yeah, but it is such an epiphany, such an awakening when you realize, when you learn to love yourself as you are, because when you love yourself and it radiates from you, you're inviting the right person to love you as you are. And if you attract somebody who does not, then that's not the right person. Right. So it doesn't matter if that person is sexy and exciting and they kiss you like you just exploded when you kiss them, and, rockets going off in your head and all this. It doesn't matter. You have to, that's part of the healing work. That is the healing work, is learning to love yourself, all of yourself. And, none of our bodies, nobody has a perfect body, but we're all imperfect, right? I mean, there's no perfection. So we have to love the body we have. And I was mentioning this to in another episode, just to my guest, that there was a time when my partner and I have been in a committed relationship now for several years. And we went on a beach vacation, and I was putting on my bathing suit, and I was looking, going, well, things just aren't as firm as they used to be. But then I just kind of stopped myself because he loves me the way I am and I love me. And I thought, this body has given me 2 beautiful children. It's traveled the world. It's been through so much that, and I love it. I love myself. I don't want to change it. I don't want to look like her or that person over there. I'm me. So I think that's a big part of the healing. And that will help you when you learn to love yourself for yourself. It will be easier to be in a relationship, a physical relationship with somebody, right?
Absolutely. I work with so many people around that piece of having negative body image and it is the moment in time where we catch that, just like you had that moment where you caught that. Right. And so every time we catch those moments, we are building a muscle. We're building a muscle that changes the negative body image conversation. Because for some people, it's not easy to just say, okay, I'm just going to not say that anymore because it's so ingrained and it's so deeply connected and it's so connected to control and fear and food and trauma and all of that. However, each time we make that choice to say, I'm safe in this body that I'm in right now, what happens is we feel empowered and we become more sovereign. And that is really a turn on, to be unapologetic about our body, right? Because this is the thing, when we're having sex, yes, it's a visual thing, but it's more of a physical, pleasurable thing. So if you're in your body and you are feeling turned on and sexy, the partner you're with is not going to be like looking at the little extra flesh. It's It's like if a woman and a man is fully in their erotic expression, that takes over, right? It's when we diminish and we tense up because of the fear of being seen in our body. And so I can expand on that a little bit more because I think it's really important.
Okay.
So here we are. We've just had a divorce. We're coming to this new relationship. And there's going to be a lot of fear around that. Oh my gosh, am I going to open my heart to someone else? I just had my heart broken. Am I really going to do this? This is scary. And so what happens is with sex, I've seen a lot of people who are like, they're in relationship for a while. And then all of a sudden, they're really uncomfortable having sex with their partner. And they think it's about their body. They blame their body. They said, I don't know. I just started thinking all these bad things like about my butt and this and that. And I'm like, and as we go deeper in, I'm like, is it really about your body? And they're like, and what we get to is it's the moment of vulnerability. It's the moment of being seen. When we are with someone for a little while and we start to open up and allow that person to see us, there's a vulnerability and that can be scary. And what can be the ammo is blame it on my body. Blame it on my body not looking the right way. And then the body tenses up. The body pulls back. And now you're not in connection with your partner. And that feels safe. That feels safe energetically. That feels safe emotionally and physically. So in these moments, we really want to look at, is it because I'm afraid of my body not looking the right way and being the right way? Or is it something deeper? Is it that actually I'm afraid of being hurt? I'm afraid of deep vulnerability and intimacy. And this is the thing. That is a beautiful moment to acknowledge that. That's a moment, that is the moment of listening. That is the moment of deep healing, that we don't have to blame it on our body. We can say, oh, I'm afraid here. I'm really afraid. A beautiful conversation to have with a partner. Oh my gosh, I'm feeling closed down and it's showing up here and it's showing up in this. It's because I'm afraid of getting hurt, or I'm afraid of being, whatever it is. And so when we bring that to the equation, and we even know that that is what may happen with sex after divorce, that these moments will show up to be healed. And we want to welcome that. We want to welcome that rather than being like, oh, great. No, this is another layer of loving self. This is another opportunity to meet and bring love and compassion to ourselves for the journey that we're on as human beings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you so much for pointing that out and explaining that. That really, that's something that is very important to catch, like you said, and to ask, to question yourself. Is this because I have love handles, or is this because I'm afraid of getting attached because of the trauma that I went through from the marriage that I came out of. And I think you would agree with me that I see I see some women who jump out, more so men. Mostly men do this, in my opinion, of the men that I've spoken to. But they'll, right after divorce, just jump right out and start dating. And I think there are a lot more women who will kind of hold back a little bit, because whether they want to get things in order, or they're moving, or whatever it is. But that's the healing. That's when the healing begins, or even before you actually split. It's when the healing begins. And I believe that dating right after that split is not a great idea, because you need to discover who you are as an individual, not part of that we anymore, but who you are. Like you mentioned it at the beginning of this interview, that we may have changed, or most likely changed, since we first got married, and could have been a long time ago, to the person we are now, and all the things we've gone through, all the wisdom, all the things we've learned. And I think it is so important to do the healing work, so you know what to look for. And I believe that if you do that, and correct me if I'm wrong, talking about what you were just talking about, and getting to that, is this a body issue versus is this a commitment or issue, or fear issue, or afraid of, loving someone new, or whatever you want to label it, that if you haven't healed, you're going to find yourself in that position, most likely. So it's important to do and you still can have those little moments, we all do. We all have moments, like I said, about the bathing suit with me. But, I think the more healing work you do after you get out of that marriage, the more prepared you're going to be to love yourself. And if you love yourself, you're going to be able to love someone else more likely than not, right? Sorry, I didn't mean to take that into such a long little speech there, but I thought it was really important.
I think that's really wise, right? So when we're talking about having sex with other, within the next partner, or just having sex in general to have fun, or whatever the story is really the honoring of coming back to self, and not finding our bodies in someone else. We're finding our bodies on our own. So then when the body can meet the other person. So I really appreciate that. I think that's so wise to have that time for self to heal and to be. And there are these moments there are the moments that only relationships bring up. Like the more that we're, on our own, like we can do our own healing. But, when we get into relationship, they push all of the right buttons, right? They push all the activations and the triggers and the wounds to be healed, right? And it takes sometimes partnership in order to do some of that deep healing, right? Yeah. And as you said, to know self first, so that when we come into that, we're not now doing the same thing we did in the other relationship, and we're just bringing that same story in. Right. It's so very much important. Yeah.
It's great. It's great advice. So, is there anything else that you can think of that would help somebody get ready for sex after divorce? I mean, we've gone through a lot of great topics, and just wondering if there's anything else.
Yeah. Well, we talked about listening to our body, right? We talked about listening, and we talked about honoring the cycles on where we are in our life. And we talked about accepting our body for where it is right now, and being in acceptance. And not even acceptance of our bodies, but acceptance of how we feel about sex, how we want to have sex. We talked about pleasure, right? That's self-pleasure and bringing that in. We also talked about clearing the voices from past relationships and taking some time to clear those and be with those and delete those. And we talked about enjoying being a sensual sexual being and how that can show up in the way we eat food and the way we see life. Yeah. And one of the things that I find can be really helpful is to bring in, well, I'm a Reiki master. I've been doing Reiki for over 20 years now. And so for those of you who don't know what Reiki is a healing modality. It's a spiritual practice. It's also a hands-on healing modality where you call in loving light. You call in unconditional love. And through that unconditional love, the body releases stress and the body comes back to authentic space. So I'm a big believer in doing practices that help us to heal. So Reiki was one of those for me that kind of opened up that. So that can look like going in nature. That can look like prayer, cultivating a relationship with your higher power, with God, with spirit. That can look like meditation or yoga or playing with your cats and dog, like bringing in, especially in this healing process, right? Like this is a big deal. Divorce is a big deal. The aftermath of divorce is a big deal. And sometimes that can just feel so overwhelming and so contracted. So to get support to remind us of unconditional love, and that is available in so many different ways. And I know in my own healing journey, healing my relationship with my body and food and everything else that I've been healing from, right? Is that having that sense of a spiritual connection and knowing that I don't have to do it on my own. And even looking for support and help. So that idea of other modalities can also be finding a coach like Rachel or myself or someone else that can really open up these pockets and open up the pockets of unconditional love and healing. And to see the body holds emotions that haven't been felt. That holds tension. It's held as stress. It shows up as dis-ease. It shows up as illness. And so if you've been in a relationship that was very toxic, or not even just toxic, but just like, wow, you were holding in, you weren't using your voice, and you're just like that could still be stuck in there. And so to release that. And I think that talk therapy can be good. And I think that sometimes just telling our story doesn't get to where it lives in the body, right? Where it is in the tissues. And so I would highly recommend, as a way to get not just your body ready for sex, but your body back to yourself, is to have a deeper outlook on how different modalities can serve you. Yeah,
I agree 100%. And I love Reiki. There's a local yoga place by me that is a very spiritual yoga place. And people come from all over to go there. And they have, once a month, they have a Reiki master class. And it's, you sit in a circle and you do some deep breathing, you do some meditation, guided meditation, and then they walk around and they touch you, and it feels incredible. It's just you walk out there and you feel lighter. And I've always loved that. I've always loved meditation. I do that daily. Yoga, deep. There's so many great things. So for the people who aren't familiar with these spiritual modalities, you can ask a coach, like Marla or myself, or you can look into it yourself. There are so many wonderful things you can just try. And you might not like one, you might love one, you might find something that just feels good and stick with that, because it's just another tool that you have to help you heal and to help you, like you said, reclaim yourself back. And I love it. Absolutely. I love that you do Reiki. Yeah.
Good old YouTube, right? You can do Reiki. I do a lot of distance Reiki. I just did a Reiki circle for appreciation last night. It was so powerful with a lot of people.
Wow.
people from all over the country, and the energy is so palpable and so beautiful, right? And so, yeah.
Well, I'll have to try one of your online Reiki classes one day. I'd love to do that.
Yeah. So, okay. I'll let you know.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Okay. But wow, this has been a lot of just fantastic information, and you are you are an incredible resource. And thank you for all of your knowledge. I am going to put up on the screen here for the viewers all of the places where they can find you, Marla, your website, where they can order your book. They can watch your TEDx talk and your social media, and a free gift that you even give away. So that'll all be up here on the screen. And for those who are listening, I will put all of that in the show notes, and you can always reach out to me too if you want to contact Marla. So I'm going to show a picture of your book as well. So thank you so much for being here with me and sharing all of your knowledge. I love it.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for having me. And I'm just wishing everyone out there like such grace and ease on your journey of healing.
Yeah. So wonderful, wonderful words of advice. Thank you, Marla. It was a pleasure having you.